The Bruins and Penguins score goals in bunches. Steven Stamkos leads the Predators' comeback, and the Wild and Red Wings are decided in sudden death. Details on that and more on this edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL during the regular season and the playoffs. We are available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast and the host of Locked On LA Kings. He's Shukri Wrights, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast, radio host and producer, 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia. And together, we are here to get you caught up on all the goals, saves, big moments, and storylines from the night in the NHL with a big assist from our Locked On local experts. Shu, we had 8 games in the NHL. This is my favorite kind of schedule. Not too many, not just a couple of games, just right number of games to kind of get into and enjoy.
Absolutely. I mean, tonight was a tremendous night. It was a healthy dosage of games. Sometimes it's not even about the quantity, it's the quality. And we've had some really good ones tonight, by the way.
And we're going to start with your Boston Bruins, who are hosting the top team in the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Bruins, thanks to a big first period, are able to get a 4-3 victory. And let's check in with the host of Locked On Boston Bruins to get the details on this one. It's Ian McLaren.
Well, that game was way more interesting than it needed to be, but the Bruins held on for a 4-3 win over the Vegas Golden Knights. They got off to a flying start in this one. They were up 3-0 after scoring 3 goals in 54 seconds. Joonas Korpisalo made some huge saves to keep it at that score for a while. They went up 4-0, and then Vegas came back, scored 3 unanswered goals to make it, again, really interesting, more than it needed to be. But the Bruins back on a winning note, shaking off that pretty bad game the other night against Dallas with a huge game against Montreal coming up on Saturday. Just 2 power play goals to get this one going for the Bruins. Couple power play assists from Morgan Geekie, who's getting back into the flow. And everybody played just a fantastic game in this one, a 4-3 win over Bruce Cassidy and his Vegas Golden Knights.
All right, thanks to Ian McLaren for that report. The Bruins able to take advantage of a 4-minute double minor high sticking penalty on Tomas Hertl. Those 3 goals they scored in 54 seconds. 2 of them came on that power play. Charlie McAvoy and Elias Lindholm. And then you had Tanner Jeannot and David Pastrnak scoring as well. Pastrnak with an assist and his 21st goal of the season. Vegas tried to come back, as you heard, and made it interesting, but they did get within 1 goal with 2:35 left, but could not get the equalizer, and the Bruins hold on for that victory.
It was an interesting game in more ways than one. Number one, I was most curious to see what type of response were the Boston Bruins going to deliver on Thursday night, coming off a humiliating loss, 62 to the Dallas Stars on Tuesday. I was curious to see how will they show up within the first 10 minutes. And I thought the first 10 minutes, they showed up okay. And they got the crowd involved very early. And like the thing that I thought that was most impressive, you talked about the power play, in which that on that same power play, the Bruins scoring two goals on that power play. The thing that I really appreciated most on that sequence in particular was the fact that you saw Charlie McAvoy, getting involved, and you pretty much saw him like activate on the power play, score on the slap shot, and then the second one that was scored by Elias Lindholm. It was good to see like the Bruins like power play, activate in real time against this really good Vegas team that I thought it was going to be a test. And it was a test. It was a test for them following the way that the Bruins played on Tuesday night, in which that their 6-game winning streak got snapped. But ultimately, I thought what also stood out was their leaders led in this game. McAvoy led by example. How do you bounce back from an embarrassing effort in Dallas on Tuesday night? I thought Pasternak led by example in terms of how do you show up, following a bad loss. And I just thought that the team overall had really good energy. But in the end, yeah, did Vegas get back into it? Sure, absolutely. You know what? Like, Vegas is too good of a team that you're going to be able to hold down for too long. I mean, like, hello, Tomas Hertl with the power play goal in the third period to make things really interesting. But at the same time, I thought that the Bruins response was really outstanding in this game, coming back from a humiliating loss on Tuesday night, in which that you saw the offense really come to life, but especially the power play for the Bruins as well.
Yeah, I guess if you're Vegas, you feel somewhat good that you did put up a fight at the end. 3 goals in the third period. Jack Eichel, Tomas Hertl, Pavel Dorofeev. Mark Stone did extend his point streak to 13 games. It's the longest in franchise history. And Rasmus Andersson, who just got traded from Calgary to Vegas, still has yet to play for the Golden Knights. He's still having work visa issues. So They're trying to straighten that out. But for Boston, they've won 7 of 8. They are holding the final wildcard spot in the East. For Vegas, after a 7-game winning streak, they've now dropped 2 in a row, but they are still on top in the Pacific Division by 2 points. Let's check out the Wild hosting the Red Wings in a big one. This one goes overtime before Minnesota pulls out the 4-3 win. Let's get a report from the host of Locked On Minnesota Wild, and that is Seth Topol.
And Matt Zuccarello go together like peanut butter and jelly, and I would be willing to bet Detroit is probably sick of it after seeing the pair combine for 4 goals against the Red Wings in a 4-3 overtime win. Kaprizov, after just 3 goals in his last 16 games, scores twice, including once on the power play. Matt Zuccarello with a couple of goals as well. And the Wild win a thrilling, entertaining game against the Detroit Red Wings, seeing their former goaltender Cam Talbot in net and watching the Wild come away with an exciting overtime win at home. A lot of fun for the Minnesota Wild. Quinn Hughes all over the place. Joel Eriksson Ek back in the lineup. Things on the up for the Minnesota Wild. Make sure to follow along with Locked On Wild so you don't miss out throughout the rest of the year.
All right, thanks, Seth Topol, for that. Yep, Matt Zuccarello goals number 7 and 8, and Kirill Kaprizov goals numbers 26 and 27. That 27th goal of the year was your overtime game winner on a beautiful wrist shot. For Detroit, Lucas Raymond had a pair of goals in defeat, number 16 and 17. Patrick Kane, no points, still 2 away from Mike Modano as far as the all-time points leader for U.S.-born hockey players in NHL history. Wild do move into second place in the Central Division with those 2 points. They're 2 points up on Dallas. For Detroit, their 3-game winning streak is snapped, but they do get a point out of it, and they are in first place in the Atlantic Division, 1 point up on Tampa Bay. Good hockey game between the Wild and the Red Wings in this one.
Oh, it was a good one. And, like, honestly, you're not going to find me griping about much, if anything, really much at all. If the only thing there would be for me to gripe about is the fact that that Detroit could not hold on to the lead like late in that third period. But that's just more really on a minor side. But big picture scheme of things, I thought this was a terrific game in which that you saw like Lucas Raymond, why he is such a vital part of the Red Wings' future moving forward. And I think that on the power play, exactly where like Detroit has been solid on the man advantage, but of course, Kirill Kaprizov. I mean, stop if you heard this before. The man is pretty much like the bread man out there, like from Minnesota, in which that he is so dangerous on a multitude of levels, whether if it's on the power play, whether if it's on 5-on-5. And you saw that again tonight, in which that the power play goal that he scored that tied the game at 1-1. And then, of course, all it took was 45 seconds for him to say, hey, you don't have to stay here, but you have to get out of here. So that was basically like tonight for Kirill Kaprizov in a nutshell, in which that this was a really entertaining game, but you also saw a really gritty performance on Minnesota in terms of coming back to tie it up. Obviously, Matt Zuccarello, the grizzled veteran, scoring the equalizer was 6-11. Into the third period. But as I mentioned, Kaprizov really was the one who stole the show tonight, showing everyone why he's absolutely among the elite of the elite in the NHL.
The Dallas Stars still struggling. We'll try and figure that out next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets that you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boosts give you just enough juice on the bets that you like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play in the playoffs feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go for even bigger payouts during the playoffs. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Let's check in on the Dallas Stars. They were in Columbus taking on the Blue Jackets, and there was only one goal scored in this one. It was by Columbus, and they get a big shutout victory behind goaltender Jet Greaves. Let's get a report on this one from the host of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets, Jake Forster.
Jet Greaves. That's it. That's the post-game video. Huge 1-0 win for the Jackets over the Dallas Stars. Jet Greaves, MVP. Like, absolute rock star this game. Made, I think, 28 of 29 saves. Outdueled Casey DeSmith, who also was excellent. Goal from Zach Werenski, his 19th of the season. They pushed back. After a terrible outing against the Ottawa Senators, the Blue Jackets bounced back in this game. They didn't collapse. They pushed all game. They got outworked because the Dallas Stars are a very, very good team. But overall, a win's a win, baby. I will always take a 1-0 win, despite the fact that my watch spent most of the third period yelling at me about how high my heart rate is. That was a lot of fun. We're going to be going live on Locked On Blue Jackets very shortly to break down this win.
All right, thanks to Jay Forster for that. Appreciate it. Jet Greaves, 28 save shutout, third of his career, first of the season. He mentioned Zach Werenski gets his 19th goal. That is the most by any defenseman in the NHL, as he makes a run at the Norris Trophy, perhaps. Also, congrats to Charlie Coyle, playing in his 1,000th career game for Columbus. The Blue Jackets are now 4-1 since they made the coaching change. Dean Nevison out, Rick Bowness in. For Dallas, no goals, obviously, in this one from a very talented group. He mentioned Casey DeSmith, allowed 1 goal on 22 shots, but he gets no support. Since December 23rd, that's a span of 14 games, the Stars are 3-7-4. Certainly the roster is better than that record would indicate. Not sure what's going on right now with Dallas, but seems like their star players aren't producing, and they haven't got much depth scoring all year, and those guys aren't obviously chipping in to help out.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, I will start with the Columbus Blue Jackets first and foremost. This was one heck of a goaltending matchup, as it turned out to be. I mean, when you're going into this matchup, you're not thinking, Casey DeSmith, I mean, is he going to really set the world on fire? Are you also thinking about, Jet Greaves? Is he going to wow you in between the pipes? But the truth is, both goaltenders did exactly that. They were terrific. This was the game in which you got a great goaltending performance of both Greaves and DeSmith. Ultimately, Greaves, coming out the victor, winning 1-0. But the other side of it, I look at Dallas, and this is puzzling to me, in which that Dallas just dominated the Boston Bruins on Tuesday night, scoring 6 goals, and tonight they couldn't finish their chances. And that was something that the Dallas head coach Glenn Gulutzan said in the postgame, in which that for some reason Dallas it was a tight checking game, but it wasn't as if the Stars didn't have chances. They had some good chances in this game that they were not able to capitalize. So I think in this recent stretch, and I thought Eddie, you really like highlighted it extremely well, in which that in these last 14 games, I think the biggest problem for Dallas has been their very inconsistent play offensively, especially 5-on-5. And it was really more of the same tonight where they just were not able to capitalize on opportunities when they had it.
We had the Canadiens hosting the Sabres in Buffalo, getting a 4-2 victory. Things getting off to a good start for the Sabres as they scored on their first shot of the game, 44 seconds in. Jason Zucker, his 11th of the year. They scored a shorthanded goal from Blake Malestein, his 4th of the year, to make it 2-0. Zach Benson, 6th of the year, made it 3-0. Kind of similar to what we saw earlier with the Bruins getting off to the good start.
Yeah.
And the Zach Benson goal was amazing. Double post, and he still stuck with it and got it into the net. So third time was the charm on that one. But the good start was able to carry Buffalo to the victory. The Canadiens tried to fight back late. Cole Caulfield, his 26th, Nick Suzuki is 16th, but Peyton Krebs would ice it with an empty net goal. It was a 3-2 game for most of the third period, and Montreal just could not get that equalizer. The Sabres win despite being outshot 34-17. Kudos to goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 2 goals allowed on 34 shots. So Buffalo holding on to that number 1 wildcard spot in the East right now. Nice win for them. For Montreal, they're in the 3rd spot in the Atlantic Division.
Well, you know what else is interesting, Eddie, is that the Buffalo Sabres win this game despite being smoked in the faceoff circle, in which that the Canadiens won just under 65% of their faceoff in this game. And you talk about how important it is for a team to find different ways to win, and you saw that with the Sabres tonight, in which that you could actually say, and you wouldn't be wrong, they have been the hottest team in the NHL over the course of the last month and a half. And you saw why tonight. It wasn't just like the usual suspect that you would expect from Buffalo, from whether it's Tage Thompson or like some of the other star players. It was Zucker, it was a veteran, it was Melanson on the shorthanded opportunity in itself. You talk about finding different ways to win, scoring on a shorthanded opportunity and burying it. That's another way to help your cause. And if you're Montreal, it was a good effort to come back into this game after you're down 3-0. But I think Buffalo, one thing that they have done during the stretch is, yes, get scoring from up and down our lineup. But I thought they have defended well in their own end, much better as of late, and it certainly showed tonight in Montreal.
Blackhawks were in Carolina to take on the top team in the Metropolitan Division, the Hurricanes, in Chicago, getting a nice 4-3 shootout victory. Let's get a report on this one from the host of Locked On Chicago Blackhawks, Jack Bushman.
Birthday to remember forever for Oliver Moore is after getting pummeled by Alexander Nikishin in a rookie-on-rookie fight late in the second period. Moore gets stitched up, returns to the game, and then gets called on by head coach Jeff Blashill in the 6th round of the shootout and nets the game-winning goal to lift the Blackhawks to a 4-3 win over the Carolina Hurricanes in a building where they've really struggled in over the last handful of years, winning just once in their last 10 trips to Raleigh. Big time win for the Blackhawks to make it 2 in a row. Moore comes away with the game-winning tally, a fight, and an assist in this one. And while his goal technically won't count because it came in a shootout, to me and lots of us Blackhawks fans, we're going to call this the Gordie Howe hat-trick birthday celebration for Oliver Moore. What a key win for the Blackhawks. I'll get into more takeaways on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks.
All right, thanks to Jack Bushman for that. Yeah, I remember my 21st birthday, sort of, but I know I didn't have a Gordie Howe hat trick in the NHL. Congrats to Oliver Moore for that one. That was certainly nice. He didn't do too well in the fight, but he did do well in getting that shootout game winner. But this was a back and forth game, tied 1-1 after 1, tied 2-2 after 2, tied 3-3 after 3. But again, Chicago able to get the victory. They're 4 points out of the final wildcard spot in the West. They would have to leapfrog a number of teams, but they're still trying to play relevant games. For Carolina, they're still on top of the Metro. They got a 6-point lead. They get a point out of this one as well, but a very nice win for the Blackhawks.
It was definitely very nice. And I will also add that I do remember what I did for my 21st birthday, but It wasn't a Gordie Howe hat trick, unfortunately. But what I will say is the fact that Oliver Moore, have yourself a night, and Connor Bedard, who also scored in that shootout, have yourself a night as well. But I would also say, like tonight was definitely an impressive win for the Chicago Blackhawks, who simply put, they just refused to play the role of passenger like in this game, in which that they were very intent on setting the tone early, and they did exactly just that. Mikheyev, scoring on a short-handed opportunity, making 1-0, that being the example right there, set the tone early. And I thought that Chicago did a pretty good job of that throughout much of the night, despite the fact that Carolina made it a very early, like back and forth affair. Like Nystrom tying it at 1, and then Jordan Staal tying it at 2 after Nick Lourdes made a 2-1 Chicago lead at the time in this game. And just when it seemed like Chicago was going to win this game, Connor Murphy putting the Blackhawks ahead, like Carolina came back and tied it with Jackson Blake, towards the latter part of the third period. But the Blackhawks just refused to show grit. And to your point, Eddie, I think, right now they're still playing meaningful games. Here we are as we enter late January, and that's all you can ask for a rebuilding Chicago Blackhawks team.
Yeah, you mentioned Joel Nystrom, first career NHL goal for him. So congratulations to him on that one. Big night for Steven Stamkos, and the Ottawa Senators continue to scuffle. We will get into that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. All right, we have the Predators hosting the Senators. We've talked about some good starts for some teams that led to wins. Ottawa had a 3-0 lead in the second period against the Predators. They cannot hold it. Nashville scores the next 5, including 4 in the third period. Steven Stamkos, a hat trick in the mix, numbers 22, 23, and 24 for him. 2 of them on the power play. His third goal was the game winner, 16th career hat trick. And Nashville pulls one out on home ice with a big finish. That's a really, not all losses are created equal. And that one it feels like more than just a loss when you blow a 3-0 lead on the road and let the other team come back and beat you. But for Ottawa, Stephen Halliday gets his first NHL goal. James Reimer allowed 4 goals on 25 shots. But Steven Stamkos started off the season really slow. A lot of people were saying he was washed. He's had the last say here and is coming back and looking like vintage Steven Stamkos of late. But for Nashville, 1 point out of the final wildcard spot in the West. For Ottawa, they've lost 3 of 4 and just 3 wins in the last 10 games. And as I mentioned, that loss really, really feels bigger than just one loss.
And it does. Before I even get to Steven Stamkos in just a moment, like I can't even begin to like express like what that was. Especially starting like the end of that second period. Like even though Stamkos scores on the power play to cut into the Ottawa lead at 3-1, you're not thinking that Ottawa is going to absolutely implode, but they imploded. And to me, and I think the part that's most disturbing about it is the fact that in that third period, they looked like everything just fell apart, not just on the ice, but mentally. Now, I don't want to go as far as to say that the Ottawa Senators quit in this game, but it looked like once Steven Stamkos scored to cut into the Ottawa lead at 3-1, that it looked like the dam broke. And it was the beginning of, yeah, it's happening. And that's exactly what happened, because that third period was all Nashville. It was all Nashville in terms of the dominance on the offensive side of things. Jonathan Marchessault, which he cut the Ottawa lead to 3-2. But then also Stamkos, as you mentioned, now going back to Stamkos has looked like the Steven Stamkos of yesteryear when he was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you've seen this in his recent stretch with his play, in which that he has been playing exceptionally well offensively, and he's been an offensive force for this Nashville Predators team, in which that they came back from 3-0 down to win 5-3. But I would also say that it's really good to see Stamkos return to being back an offensive force again this year after losing a lot of his confidence, I believe, last season as well.
We had the Oilers hosting the Penguins. We told you the Bruins scored 3 goals in 54 seconds. Well, the Penguins said, hold my beer. 3 goals in 37 seconds in the first period to get off to a 3-0 lead. Anthony Mantha scored 2 of them, numbers 15 and 16. Sidney Crosby gets his 27th. They did it against former Penguins goalie Tristan Jarry, who was facing his old team for the first time with his new team at home. He did face the Penguins in Pittsburgh, but this is the first time on home ice he faced his old squad. He ended up giving up 6 goals on 22 shots. So Pittsburgh's now won 3 in a row and 5 of 4, or 4 of 5, I should say. Penguins are holding on then at number 2 wildcard spot in the Metropolitan Division. As for the Edmonton Oilers, let's get a report on them from the host of Locked On Oilers, Nick Zararis.
Being a good professional athlete and part of being on a good team is being able to flush bad performances. Tonight, the Edmonton Oilers had one to flush. They gave up 3 goals in 37 seconds. Anthony Mantha cooking the Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm pair for 2, and Sidney Crosby doing Sidney Crosby things, yes, even in year 21. And the Oilers were down 3-0 5 minutes into this game, and as much as they tried to mount much of a comeback, the Penguins kept pouring it on, ultimately winning the game 6-2 in a game that wasn't really close. You go look at the underlying, sure, the expected goals and the scoring chances are relatively even, but you would expect that. If a team is down 3-0 and the other team is up 3-0, the team that's down multiple goals is going to push as hard as they can for offense, and it's going to open them up to vulnerabilities on the counterattack, which the Penguins were more than happy to take advantage of. And then if you're Pittsburgh and you're in the offensive zone and you're set up, you're not going to take risks to give Edmonton a chance to go back the other way on the counter. The Oilers are proving to have a difficult time mounting comebacks. They are struggling mightily this year when they fall behind. The Oilers have lost 21 out of 25 games this year when the other team has opened the scoring. This is a team that doesn't have the same depth and, frankly, hasn't gotten the same even strength production out of its best players, and it's manifesting in the game's results.
All right, good stuff from Nick Zararis there. Connor McDavid did not have a point in this one, still at 85 and still tied with Nathan McKinnon for the most in the league. Leon Draisaitl did return from being away from personal reasons, but he also didn't have a point as well. Oilers do not gain ground on Vegas for first in the Pacific. They're still 2 points back of the Golden Knights. So not a great start for Edmonton, great start for Pittsburgh, and they ride that to the victory.
It was a great start for Pittsburgh, but the report from Nick was so telling, because when you are a team that when you don't start well, it tends to carry through the games that that you play. Tonight was an example of exactly that. Pittsburgh pretty much rode the 3 goals in 37 seconds in that first period to the win, and I think it just speaks to both, number one, their inability to come back in games in which that they get up to less than ideal starts, but then also the lack of depth definitely showed up tonight, because no matter what like Edmonton tried to do to counter that, it was as if that Pittsburgh just continued to just come in waves, whether it was Anthony Mantha scoring twice, Sidney Crosby, he scored. Stop me if you heard that before. And then as well as Evgeny Malkin having a multi-point night as well, which includes a goal as well. So if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins, number one, you extend your point streak to 6 games. You're very much relevant in the Stanley Cup playoff race in the Eastern Conference. And you gotta like what you saw from Artur Silovs as well for Pittsburgh. But if you're Edmonton, you're just wondering, what's the deal? Like, what's the deal in terms of defending in their own end, of course, but then as well as in terms of like the goaltending. Like goaltending was just not good enough. Tristan Jarry was less than ideal in his start tonight against his former team, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Our final game was in Winnipeg with the Jets hosting the Panthers, and Florida squeaks out a 2-1 shootout victory. Let's get a report on this one from the host of Locked On Florida Panthers, Armando Velez.
The Florida Panthers were able to grind out a win in Winnipeg for the first time since 2022, winning by a final score of 2-1 in a shootout. Lundell and Reinhart both got goals in the shootout, and Daniil Tarasov stopped both shots that he faced in the shootout. And for the Panthers and the Jets here, low event game where neither team got over 20 shots on goal, and it was 0-0 right before the end of the second period as Matthew Tkachuk got his first point since his return to the lineup, setting up Sam Bennett nicely. The Panthers did blow a third period lead, and after an exciting overtime period, the Panthers were able to come out with a win. The Panthers are now 12-3-1 after a regulation loss, 17-0-1 when leading after the second period. And Paul Maurice, more importantly, he gets his first win in Winnipeg since becoming the coach of the Florida Panthers.
All right. Thanks to Armando Velez for that little nugget at the end there as Paul Maurice goes back to Winnipeg and is able to get the victory. He is right. Low event game, not obviously only 2 goals through 3 periods, not even able to get a goal in overtime, but in the end, wins like this will be important for the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs. They're trying to make sure they get back in the playoffs and get a chance to defend that crown again.
Absolutely. And if they're going to make a push, now is the time to start. They just got back, Matthew Tkachuk, who has missed, like most of the season, recovering from off-season surgeries. And, like any win and points that the Panthers can get, they absolutely need to get that, get them in space pretty much heading into the Olympic break. And I thought like tonight was really important, like to see that, especially with Daniil Tarasov making 17 saves, and as well as stopping both of the attempts that he faced in the shootout for the Panthers, in which that at this point, anytime you can get 2 points is huge, but especially tonight on the road, it is really, really critical. And as well as like Sam Bennett, who for me was definitely it was a really huge surprise to not see him on the Olympic team. He scored in regulation for the Florida Panthers. So for me, I think this was a really a huge win for the Panthers, who need to collect points in any way that they possibly can right now.
All right, if you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, find the Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for your squad. Of course, Locked On NHL Game Night's here for you every night, covering every game until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned, on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Shukri Wrights, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.